And this is a message that I really fought with this week and struggled and really wasn't sure if I wanted to tell it. I actually, believe it or not, have a whole nother message written for this service today. But I'm going to do it anyway. Matthew 5:14 is for us. And it says, "You are the light of the world. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven." Jesus said, when I leave this world, I'm passing on the light to you. So you need to be the light in the world. But my life ended in the year 2000. And that's kind of where my story begins. In the spring of 2000, I was diagnosed with testicular cancer. The first thing that came to my mind is that my kids are only going to remember their dad as a sick dad before he died. We only had our two kids at the time, Ryan and Barbara, and they were young. They didn't understand what was going on. While all this was going on, I had found out about it on Monday, and the following Monday, I had surgery. The doctors kept telling me I had nothing to worry about, but I had to ask them, why are you going so fast if there's nothing to worry about? But after the surgery, I found out that it had not spread, and I had radiation for 3 weeks, and everything was good after that. But this is where the beginning of God's light shined on me. I was changing the channels one day on the TV, and it was an absolute miracle how I found out that I had cancer. I was turning the channels, and I stopped because there was a medical thing going on, and I thought, oh, it's an ER show or something. I'll stop and watch it. It turned out to be MTV, which I never in a million years have ever watched. The footage of that medical incident was the host of the show was in his hospital room, and he had just had surgery for testicular cancer. And he also said what the symptoms were. And when he said that, I said, oh my God, I have the same thing. If it hadn't been for me changing the channels that morning, I would have never found out. And the doctor also told me, he said, if this would have happened 5 years before, we would have been burying you within 5 years anyway. That was the first amazing story, that God shined his light on me. What are the chances of me turning on that channel at that specific time? But unfortunately, I didn't see it. So I went back to my regular life. And the next thing that God shined on me was even worse. On February 5th, 2005, my mother passed away suddenly. And I was a huge mama's boy, so it was very devastating to me. But the following Sunday after her funeral, I went back to church after not going for probably 10 years. And I came here to Como Church because Corey, the old pastor here, did my mom's service. So that following Sunday, I came back to church. This was the beginning of a whole new life, but I still wasn't aware of it. But God was. God was shining his light on me again. Even in the darkest hours of my life, the worst thing that had happened to me, God was still shining his light. But again, I still did not see it. But instead, again, I went back to my old life. But I did start following the path that God was leading me on. Even though I didn't know it, I was still going in the direction he wanted. God planned for me to come that Sunday to Como Church. I won't go into all the details, but shortly after I came here and got on the board and whatever, Corey decided to retire. And Como Church needed a new pastor. We didn't know that was going to happen, but God did. I eventually went back to school and got my bachelor's degree in ministry in 2010. People still ask me today, why did you become a minister? And I say, I have no idea. I have no idea why God put me here. But it was part of his plan. the plan that he has for all of us. It's not just me. Your life has a similar story somewhere that you went down a path that God wanted you to go. So we fast forward to 2013. Now this is where the devil came into my life. While I was at work at the school over in Williams Bay, and I was working here at the church, I hurt my back at the school and eventually needed surgery. So 2013, I had my first surgery. And the doctor told me by the x-rays, he said the 2 discs above said they were going to need attention. And I said, well, why don't you just do it all at once? And he said, well, workman's comp won't pay for it. And I said, well, why can't my insurance pay for it? And he said, that doesn't work that way. So the following year, 2014, I was back having my second surgery. Fusion that went up 3 vertebrae. 2015, I had my third surgery where they were going to go up 2 more vertebrae. But this is when the doctor at the time, who was the chief of neurosurgery at Frederick Hospital, who you would think you couldn't be in better hands, put a screw in my spinal canal and paralyzed my right leg for 3 weeks. And on top of that, he left the hospital 10 days later, and still to this day, I have not found out what happened. Finally, after the 3 weeks were over, another doctor came, and he decided he was going to fix up the surgery that the other doctor left. But he was going to leave my rods. They were going to be like this instead of being together. So he said to me that eventually, depending on what you do, that other rod is probably going to break. So by this time, we were on our 4th surgery. I just lost my job also at the school because I couldn't lift anymore. And after they fixed it, as it takes about a year to completely heal from back surgery, I was in a very dark place. I remember one day when I was home alone, I had it. I couldn't take it anymore. I was in tremendous pain. I was crying. I was even thinking of suicide. I was thinking of suicide because it hurt too much. I screamed that day and I said, "Devil, come up here and fight me." I said, "I'm sick of this. I can't take it anymore. I didn't care if I died." But I also asked God to be by my side to help me, just in case the devil showed up. I finally calmed down. And again, by this time, after having 4 surgeries, after having a representative from workers' comp go to 2 years of appointments and physical therapy and everything else, saying that I faked this, God knows how you can fake surgery. My lawyer telling me that don't do anything outside because they're going to watch you. And they will take a picture of you if you do anything wrong. If you bend over wrong, they're going to take a picture. So they don't have to pay. At this time, I also wound up with severe depression and was diagnosed with PTSD, which I said to the doctors, I thought only soldiers got that. But no, my luck, anybody that goes through a severe traumatized situation can wind up with PTSD. About a year later, one of my services here, I went home. My wife, Janice, said, "You don't sound right." And I said, "My back really hurts." So we went up to the ER up at Lakeland. And they took an x-ray and told me my rod had broken. Here we go again. They didn't want to touch it, so they sent me up to Frederick Hospital, and where I had my 5th surgery. So they took everything out, replaced everything, went up 2 more levels, and up to the middle of my back to this point. First thing I said is, here goes another summer, which I really hate to miss summer. Thank God my church family supported me. And by the way, to add insult to injury, 2 days after Janice, my wife, finished her radiation for breast cancer, that's when I broke my rod. But all that, now it's time to heal. During the period between 2013 and 2018, I had a total of 5 back surgeries. Countless numbers of doctor's appointments, physical therapy, exercises, and again, even the workman's comp doctor that I had to go to, saying that there's nothing wrong with you. Of course, they didn't want to pay for it. The devil was working on me overtime in those 5 years. I was talking Wednesday at our Alpha class that I envision us as a piece of wood. And on one side of the log, it's us, and the other side of the log, it's God. And we try to put a chisel in the middle to split the log in half for the fire. But the devil is the chisel. And the further he pounds down into that log, the further it splits away. And the further you fall away from God. So it's hard. I wondered if, as I said, the devil was working overtime. Or I said, was this a test by fire by God? I sure didn't see God's light shining on me during this time. It was just the opposite. I said many times, God, can't I just catch a break? But I know now that those 5 years were like the footprints in the sand, where God was carrying me for those 5 years. But then he finally put me down. And I started to walk in the path that he wanted me to go. Continuing to pastor at this church. Continuing to pastor starting in 2001 at a church in Walworth. And I also look back to this day. Now I can see that path so very clearly, even though I couldn't see it then. I remember one time telling my brother, I said, I wish Mom could have seen me preach. But he said to me, if Mom was still here, you wouldn't be preaching. And he's absolutely right, because I never would have gone back to church. So even with the tragic death of my mother came many blessings. I told my son last week, he came back from his first mission trip. I said, I never realized the blessings that my mom gave us by passing away. Now please understand, I'm not trying to brag. I'm here because God wanted me here. And he wouldn't let me quit along the way. I became a pastor because my mom died. And by the way, the night that she died, on her nightstand was the Bible that was open to the verse that said, I will go and prepare a place for you. And that is the absolute truth. I am here today. My wife, my son, my daughters have all become much closer to God since her passing. In the time that I started doing this, I've done over 200 funerals, comforting families, which I never thought I had the ability to do, and I don't. It is only God that is working through me, allowing me to help these families in the difficult time. I think it was God putting me through these times so I can understand what other people are going through. It is only by the grace of God that I am able to do this. But my story is not finished yet. I don't know where God's going to lead me next. I don't know which way I'm going to go. And the same goes for you. Your story is not finished yet. It's just beginning. We don't know where it's going to go. We don't know where God's going to take us. But try to find that light. Let God's light shine in front of you, because no matter what you go through in life, God's light is always shining on his children.